Thank you to our audience for joining us today. Welcome to our next session titled Beyond Unicorns, Building Sustainable Growth. So my name is Simran and I'm a reporter from DealStreetAsia. I'll be moderating this conversation today with these three gentlemen. And so to discuss unicorns and sustainable growth, today we have with us Siru from Carousell, Eric from CARSOME, and Reeve from GoGoX. I'll allow them to briefly introduce themselves and their companies.
Hi, everyone. First and foremost, thank you so much, all of you, for making time to come over to this panel. We really appreciate it. At least we're not speaking to like nobody, but it's a handful of people who are very important to us. Well, first, my name is Sure. I'm one of the co-founders of Carousell. We're here on a mission to make secondhand the first choice. Our belief is all of us in this room, in this world, has stuff in our life that's underutilized and unused that should benefit someone else and not just end up in the landfills. And if you actually need something, why not consider secondhand? You know, it's fully functional, you save money, you save the earth, you actually meet someone special, there's a story behind it. So just so many good things around secondhand that we think you guys should really consider it. So our job is to make it really simple to sell and make it really convenient and trusted to buy secondhand. So we've been doing this for about 12 years now. Still less than 1% done, and really just keeping at it each step of the way to make selling and buying a little bit more fun, simple, and enjoyable. Yeah, so that's me, and happy to share a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Like Siure, I also do secondhand, but more so we are focused on the used cars. So CARSOME is the largest used car e-commerce platform in Southeast Asia. I think we started 9 years ago, and throughout the last 9 years, we venture out from helping people to sell their cars to buying a car, and now we also venture down into providing financing, insurance, after sales. So it's a very full-fledged ecosystem, and in that process, what we have done so far is we digitalize the entire buying and selling, and even car ownership for anyone who wants to own a car in Southeast Asia. Which essentially provide them a more elevated experience compared to what they've been getting traditionally, which is so much of a headache, right? So I myself was one of the victim of that, and kind of decided with my co-founder to start that. And I think we have live in Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Singapore. We are now also going to be in Philippines, and hopefully we can explore other markets in East Asia in the future as well.
Yeah, so my name is Reeve, one of the co-founders of GoGoX. We previously called GoGoVan, if more people know about it. So I'm in between them. I've started, now it's 11 years. Yeah. Not 12 years, not 9, but 11. So we got listed, luckily we got listed in Hong Kong main board in 2 years ago. So our company does is a logistic platform, matching the supplies and demand. Basically, if you're individuals, SME, enterprise, if you have logistic need, so we are a platform to match with adequate demands, ranging from any individual couriers all the way to make containers. So we are operating in 5 regions, including 300 cities in China. We are in Singapore, we are in Korea, Vietnam, and also India. So yeah, I think we can share more during the session, so know more about us, yeah.
Thank you. So let's jump right in. I'm very curious about your respective growth stories. All three of you have had very different journeys with your companies post joining the $1 billion club. So can you talk a little bit about how that, and also how sort of you've evolved your company strategies along the way? We can start with you, Siru.
Yeah, so actually we started 12 years ago really just as 3 co-founders wanting to use technology to solve problems. And we were inspired by our time in Silicon Valley, and we just saw the potential for technology to just make life a lot simpler. So we wanted to first learn how to code, and decided that the best way to learn how to code is actually solve your own problem. So we grew up buying and selling secondhand stuff on forums, on desktop sites. And this was a time in 2011, 2012, where everyone was using the iPhone as a computer. And we thought there must be an easier way to sell. We searched the App Store, there was none. And we decided that we needed to build something mobile first. So when we first started, we built a snap list sell app you can sell something in 30 seconds. That was the innovation, very, very simple. And we started in Singapore, and since have launched this across 7 markets in Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. And very, very privileged to now serve tens of millions of users across all these markets and have tens of millions of these second-hand items actually avoiding the landfills because of the transactions that we facilitate every year. So it's been a really awesome ride this past 10, 12 years building Carousell, and we've learned a lot. And honestly, there's no real one single strategy that we've been executing throughout the years. There have been, in the first few years, it was getting Singapore to product market fit. As soon as there was product market fit, we actually started realizing that to help a lot of people, you need to go regional. And so we started launching the Southeast Asian markets. The next market we launched was Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and the likes. And that was quite exhilarating. Like every market that you launch in Southeast Asia is like doing another startup. So Southeast Asia is a great region, but it's also challenging in the sense it's very fragmented. But over the past 2-3 years, we've also learned that we need to now take the Carousell experience or the second-hand buying and selling experience to the next level. So we saw and spoke to our users that and understood that they actually wanted a lot easier way to sell and a lot more trusted way to buy second-hand items. So let's take, for example, one of our largest categories is actually luxury. So we're actually the largest resale platform for luxury bags and watches across Southeast Asia. But our users were telling us, hey, actually I could do more luxury transactions if I could have peace of mind if I know this item is actually real or not. So we actually went about to solve this challenge by building an authentication team and then launching a program called Certified. So we have a program called Certified now that actually helps buyers buy items like luxury bags, mobile phones, cars, and even fashion items with peace of mind. So those are the things that we've been investing in to make buying secondhand a lot more trusted. Actually, I'm wearing the certified t-shirt today. And it's actually very exciting for us as a company that started very much as an internet-based business. And to actually solve for these challenges, we needed to really rethink our own core competencies. And we thought, actually, we need to work backwards from the user experience. If that's what users want, and we are originally internet guys, let's go build that capability to authenticate. So it's been quite a fun journey starting as 3 kids with laptops just trying to build something for ourselves to now serving tens of millions of people across Southeast Asia and then taking our competencies to the next level now where we're actually going into some level of operations now to enhance that customer experience and trust. So it's been really, really awesome past 12 years, but we really feel like our best decade is ahead of us.
Amazing. What about CARSOME, Eric?
Yeah, so I think the whole journey, like for us, we spent 9 years building the business. Every other year, as I describe it, is almost like you're graduating from the previous grade, right? So, you know, the challenge comes in many different forms. So I think for us, at the very beginning, when we built a business, one of the things that we seek in terms of growth is, you know, we want to be entering a meaningful market that has a huge market size, which naturally cars become one of it. We want to be able to solve a problem that is very dear to our customers, right? So that we can capture an audience that, you know, hey, they themselves, when they look at it, say, hey, you know, this is what I need. And, you know, that, you know, creates that intention for us to really seek for a solution from our own experience when it comes to trading cars, right? And once we set upon, you know, how do we design that service, the product level, how would you use tech and data to kind of innovate the whole process of selling and buying? I think the execution just came rather quick because, you know, myself and my co-founder, and we see eye to eye in the sense where, you know, we want to build this into a really meaningful business. It has to be huge. It has to be something that every year as we look at the growth, you know, is something that we felt proud of, right? Especially we're doing something that is unheard of prior to, you know, us starting the business. So, you know, then, you know, that sort of just attract a lot more talents that come to the business. So the way we see the business is if we could help sell one person's car to another demand, then we should be able to sell this into thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands, right? So how do we do that? We have to be able to build towards catering for that scale. We kind of map backward, where you kind of understand that the infrastructure that you need, the funding that you need, the team that you need, the marketing approach, and being able to solve the consumer, your clientele as well, because as a business, we don't just serve consumer. We also have a huge pool of used car dealer demand who are procuring inventory from us. And naturally, the growth became very, also natural, right? Consistent towards the kind of story that we want to set upon. And gradually from one doing selling and buying, we also see growth in providing financing opportunity, providing solutions on insurance, after sales. So a lot of this just come very much like tie in as a natural value proposition. And I think to us is very important when it comes to looking back at the growth story, that we always start with how our customers are thinking, what are we solving? And if you are able to identify that, the next thing to do is how do you scale that up in a really meaningful way. It helps you to accelerate. It helps you to reach the goal a lot faster. And a reflection of that is the end result, which from the first month I remember we sold 30 cars in that month. Fast forward to now 9 years later, we're selling about 15,000 cars a month. So you look at the scale of that growth, right? If you do not able to keep up with how to do that on an incremental basis, it would just stay stagnant on decline, which is what we've been always anticipating every other year. How do we do that in the next year and so on?
What about you, Reeve? How has GoGoX sort of evolved its company strategy along the way?
So I think back to like 11 years ago, the reason we have this company is actually solving our own problems. So before starting GoVan or GoGoX, actually me and other two co-founders, we were doing another business, basically deliver lunch boxes. I mean, it's empty lunch boxes without any food in it, with advertisement, and then send it to a restaurant for free. So we have to take the lunch boxes, literally, from the manufacturer and then send it to a restaurant. At that time, I think as three kids just graduate from university like 1 or 2 years, I don't think we can afford, right? Any delivery guys or we hire something. So at the end is in Hong Kong. I think it's very special environment that you have all this call center. You give them a phone call, they can kind of line you up with a van driver to help you to do delivery. So at that time, I think we have a bottleneck that there's 100 of different call centers in Hong Kong, and each call center maybe have a connection maybe from 10 to the biggest one, maybe 800 to 1,000. But the problem is every time you call them, still you won't get an answer is when will you have a van or you ever have a van coming in your way to help you to do delivery. But unfortunately, because the counterparties we were dealing with are the restaurant owners, right, or restaurants, which they have a very strict peak hour, right? During the lunch hour, you don't do delivery to them, right? During the dinner hour, you don't do delivery. So it's a very tight delivery window in between. So every time if we deliver something late or even we cannot deliver, we got blamed. And then even you give them for free, they don't want it. So we kind of like, ourselves, we keep saving different drivers in our WhatsApp numbers. We create different group. Like 11 years, you can only store like 10 numbers in a group, right? So we have tons of different groups with a lot of drivers inside. So, and then whenever you orders, we will actually leverage these groups and then just blast them with, oh, we have an order, whoever is available in come. Then we have another problem is because once we blast the message to all the groups, a lot of drivers reply. Then a lot of drivers come, but we only have one order to deliver, right? Then we have a problem dealing with all those angry drivers. Even though they don't do deliveries, we still have to pay them. Okay, so then we have to figure out how can we solve that problem is we create a platform, put every drivers inside, then we solve our problem. So I think one of the funny user cases because one of our co-founders' father, I think he's a contractor. So he actually, call those call center every day because he have to arrange different deliveries and for his stocks and also for his workers. So at the end, we become his call center because we have the most drivers. Instead of he's calling like all the different call centers, he just call us and then we can actually find him a van. So at the end is, why don't we create a platform so that we can grow the platform and then become everybody. If you have logistic needs, you just go to a platform and then you just solve it out by itself and then get all the notification. You don't have to worry if somebody's going to call you or not. I think our purpose is, typical Hong Kong parents is like, if you work, you need to give some money to your parents, right? So basically, our aim is basically have a system sitting aside, running itself, generating income while as a free guys, we can just play PS5 or whatever. At that time, it's PS3, right? We can still play. At the other hand, is generate enough income to give our parents so that we can do our own thing, right? So that was the really best wishes at the very beginning. But actually, after running it, because basically it's very different from what you thought, right? It's like a lot of like phone calls. You have to dealing with different drivers. Some clients is you have to help them a lot in order to complete the transaction. So we grow all the way. I mean, for these 11 years, we experience a lot of difficulties, right? I think publicly we always say that we almost broke 3 times. Went broke. I think one of the most close call one is we just raised them for 4 months after I think it's one day, just a month before Christmas, is our financial controller come to us. He's like, okay, after the paycheck next month, basically your company is went bankrupt, right? So it's a lot of different kind of challenges that we face during this, but at the end it's a fun journey, and very lucky we got listed. I think start another chapter. It's not about list that you can do. Actually, now we have much more work to do, and then have to manage the expectation much more seriously, because it's went public. Everybody, if you do something, and the expectation is different. Yeah. So yeah, it's another challenging phase.
Right. That's very interesting. Thoughts from like a unicorn that's gone public. Maybe we can switch gears here to sort of like a market-related question. So. With the global macroeconomic uncertainties, how are you viewing the markets you operate in? I know all of you operate in Southeast Asia, for example. Is that kind of shining as a bright spot? And what are the opportunities and challenges in those markets? Reeve, maybe you can continue and start.
First of all, I think Asia is still a growing market, right? Look at different continents, right? And when you look at Europe, when you look at US, those continents may be very well developed, right? The growth rate is not as sexy or as fast as really the Asia is tons of different countries grouping together, and then each country definitely have their own difficulties, right? I can share, for example, when we were entering China in 2015, there are more than 200 competitors inside. I think you won't see it in Singapore or any other countries, right? There's 200 competitors. Basically, each cities, they have their 1 or 2 their own apps, and then combined together is 200 apps together. And then you have very fierce competition, right? Basically, after 2 years of time, the 200 companies went all the way down to only 3 survive, right? So you see that different challenges. And then as we operate in different countries in Asia, there's a lot of localization that you need to done, because each country, they have their own, I think, the ways of doing things, right? For example, logistics is basically, as a high level, you can say it's just shipping one to another place, right? A to B. But actually, there's a lot of process involved, a lot of different vehicle types involved. I think we originally called GoGoX is because in Hong Kong, or we start with Hong Kong, cargo van is the most common transportation mode, right, in terms of logistics. But let's say if we go to Singapore, it's not about van only, it's about lorries or even different motorcycle. In South Korea, actually 80% of our fleet are motorcycles. And they are very, very familiar with A to B instant delivery with the motorcycles, right? In Vietnam, it's a different story. They can leverage motorcycle and tricycle. Even you have a fridge or as big as this TV, it can be shipped by a motorcycle. You don't see it in Hong Kong, you don't see it in Singapore. It's impossible, right? So it's a lot of learnings in different countries, a lot of challenges in that is how you adapt the company to actually fit in the local culture so that you can grow your company in different perspectives. Yeah.
Suru, I know you mentioned in the beginning that expanding your presence, for example, within Southeast Asia is almost as opening a new startup on its own because the region is so fragmented. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What are you, seeing in terms of opportunities, challenges?
Yeah, so I think like Reeve said, super bullish about Asia and specifically I think where we are, Southeast Asia, over the next decade. It's still one of the most exciting regions. As a bloc, it's going to be 700 plus million people in the region by 2030. And I think what we have as a tailwind is just this rising share of the middle class population that's going to spend a lot more. But I think more than that, like for us, we're actually really quite excited about this mega trend across the world on consumers wanting to consume a lot more consciously and sustainably and really powering that circular economy. So we're really bullish about Southeast Asia, but also specifically the whole idea of circular economy and re-commerce in Southeast Asia. Back to the specific question about like what are some of the challenges that we actually face scaling in Southeast Asia. So the reality of Southeast Asia, though, while it is 700 plus million people across the region by 2030, it is still a block of many different fragmented markets, right? You've got the Singapore, the Malaysias, the Indonesias, the Philippines, and like it or not, each of these markets are still quite distinct from language to culture to geography, and even to preferred payment methods, preferred shipping methods, like Reeve was touching upon this as well, like every market has their own nuance for what they prefer from a payment and delivery mode. So what that really means for us as startups is that the operational complexity in this region is very high. And therefore, I think it's really important for us to take a very long-term view and systematically build the capability for the region, which is why I was kind of saying half in jest that even though we've been operating in Southeast Asia for like the past 12 years, we really feel like we're just getting started and our best decade is the decade ahead of us. Because all the work that we've done to build the foundation, to build the network, to build the community across all these markets in the first decade is now ripe for us to harness and actually compound the impact we've created over the first decade. And we also see this as, while it's actually very challenging to build these markets, hopefully it becomes that long-term investment that also pays off as a moat. So now someone thinking about entering the market will look at, actually, not so easy to enter Southeast Asia, it's so fragmented, and there are actually some of these incumbents here already. So I think from that perspective, we see all that complexity and investing and solving for that complexity as investments for the long run. And we are starting to feel a lot of that yielding in returns already, but we really think that the best years are really ahead of us. But yeah, I think if you want to play in our Southeast Asia, you need to have a prepared mind that's going to be difficult, it's going to be complex, but it's going to be a meaningful one. It's going to be a large and fast-growing market that I think you can solve really meaningful problems for.
Do you agree with that, Eric? Large market and...
Totally agree with the two of them. Yeah. Look, because I do think that net is positive, right? Whatever happening in the world today is net positive to Southeast Asia economy. It already showcased from the last 2 years how the GDP growth has been respectively all on positive note. And I think that really comes down to, looking at more localization type of problems in the sense of, for example, in most of the countries that we're operating, economy-wise, used car market-wise, financing, everything else is doing well in most cases. But there are isolated cases like, for example, in Thailand because of the interest rate hike. So the MPR just shot up quite a bit for higher purchase. So last year is 80% growth in the repossessed cars compared to all the years before. So this is the kind of numbers that's unheard of. And it's really much down to how do you navigate between these problems, right? Like for us, our approval rate is to the banks when the people are submitting their applications. It's up to like 70-80%, where the norm is like 40-50%. So you need to be able to design a way where your team is able to react to problems like that. So I guess that's the first part where, the economy itself in Southeast Asia, even from a region perspective to a country perspective, is very self-sustained. And that kind of attracts some of the new opportunities from investors and companies, right? Like We see a lot more Chinese EV brand nowadays eagerly going into Southeast Asia because of the opportunity that we are seeing, right? And of course, like number two is, I think the capital market has become so much more affected, so which also kind of make that become a lot more expensive to companies like startups, raising funding, or even raising private credit. So it's not a very favorable environment. So that, I think, Southeast Asia sort of, you see that happening right now to a lot of companies, right? And I think you will see a lot more, I would say, consolidations happening, companies not really reacting quick enough to that, which sort of endorse what Reeve just mentioned about competition, right? Because I do think that competition has kind of died down quite a bit in most of the countries that we're in. We have a lot of like copycat versions in the very beginning, like first maybe 3, 4, 5 years. Every now and then you see someone try to do it, whether it's a sophisticated one or just a wannabe, but it's there. But you don't really see that kind of environment anymore. And it's very much focused on, like for our business, it's very much focused on how do we continue to do our best and continue to bring the numbers up in a way that is, good, right? For us, is especially right now we are profitable already. That's the very key milestone for us to reach. It further endorsed, the way we've been doing it is different from a lot of others.
Right, and I have one last sort of food for thought question to wrap us up. Maybe Eric, you can continue. So, if you were speaking to yourself 10 plus years ago as a young startup founder when you first started out, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself, and are there changes you would make if you were to start over?
Yeah. So that's that advice I remind myself every other year, right? Like I mentioned earlier, it's almost like going into a new syllabus now it's a 9th year, so 10th year when I do the business again, I feel that a lot of the things that I've learned before it helps, but it's going to be new things that I need to learn to really, embrace the next challenge that I face, right? So it's the same thing that you just need to keep up that startup mentality. I feel that's very important. I see we are doing that because we are the only one that are actually wearing our own company shirt, and we are all on the stage, right? So this is I think the true startup mentality, where no matter how big you grow, we are like 1,000, 2,000 people, similar size, probably more. We also have 2,000, 3,000 people. Technically it's not a startup, but I feel that's very important. A fundamental mindset fix, right, yourself in keeping that up.
What about for GoGoX?
Well, there's a lot of mistakes that we made, right? I don't think it's worse. I think the biggest mistake at the very beginning is don't talk to anyone unless you sign an NDA, because we got copy right away. That's one. Spend wisely, right? I think one of the story is that we start the company with 5 co-founders with only 20,000 Hong Kong dollar, right? Although at the end, the bank that I checked, because we are listed, right, we have to fact check all the story. I found that the bank statement is only $16,000 inside. But yeah, I think it's how we spend the money wisely. Because at the very beginning, I think one of my co-founders shared publicly. I was like, if we have a choice, we don't spend like $5,000 buying a printer while we only have like $16,000 in the bank. So there's like typical this like I think it's really a young self making some mistake as really doing business, right? I think, but at the end of the day, it's just a part of the journey. We make mistake and then we grow again, and then we make another one, and then we grow stronger and bigger. So that's the whole fun journey all the way.
Wonderful. What about for Carousell?
I think I've been alluding to some of it in what I was sharing earlier. Like if I were to rewind 10 years ago, and if I were to start another company again, I would just remind myself that you got to make sure that you care enough about what you're doing, because most certainly the journey is going to be super hard and it's super long journey, right? Like we've just crossed 12 years and we're nowhere near done. And one of the quotes that I always refer to really remind myself about this is this quote by Bill Gates. I think he says this a lot. Like most people tend to overestimate what you can achieve in 2 years and severely underestimate what you can achieve in 10 or 20 years. So I think all of us should just remind ourselves that actually really the power of just staying in the game, enduring, and letting each of these mistakes that we'll inevitably make along the way will compound to long-term impact because of that incremental lessons that you learn, the incremental network you've built, and hopefully for us, the best decade is ahead of us.
Wonderful, and we're right on time. Thank you so much. Please join me in, applauding our wonderful panelists. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
joining.
guys.
Thank you.